Good evening, Ms. Wallace. Today we are here to speak with you on professionalism in early childhood education. Ms. Wallace has been an educator for over 20 years and has taught in the field of early childhood, so she comes with a wealth of information about professionalism in early childhood education. Ms. Wallace, tell me, what do you understand by the term professionalism?
When I think of professionalism, I reference ethical behaviors and attitudes. I would reference the way one would carry themselves in terms of dress and demeanor. And more importantly, in order for one to be a professional, I think the competency skills that they take to their workplace is of extreme importance.
Okay. Why do you think professionalism is important in early childhood education?
Early childhood education is a special stage in the general education of a human being. And I think that there are specific requisite skills that one should have. The knowledge about how a child develops, how a child learns is important, and it's therefore critical for one to be versed in the study of children, how to relate to children, and how children grow.
Okay. How do you think professionalism can be maintained in early childhood education?
In order to maintain something, you must first have it. And therefore, there should be standards that speaks to what the professionalism is within early childhood. There should be standards specific to early childhood, and then it will be easy for others, anyone who enters early childhood education to know, understand. So some of the things I think that needs to be maintained would be the way persons dress, the way they speak to others, the general politeness and respect given.
Okay, I do agree. What would you say is the most important indicator of professionalism in early childhood education?
Well, for me, it's respect. And I say respect because we have to think of confidentiality. We have to think of the privacy of children and families, and also for families to trust us or trust anyone who works in early childhood. So I think respect is the most important character.
Okay, I do agree. How do you believe professionals in early childhood education should conduct themselves with other teachers?
In any workplace, collegiality should be key. And so they should be collegial. They should communicate and communicate well. They should share problem solving. They should be polite and amicable, because that is what children would see. And what they see, they learn more than what you tell them. And so I think the type of relationship that the workers display, the teachers display, would be those things that the children would quickly emulate.
How should professionals in the early childhood conduct themselves around children?
Okay, that too is really important. Our communication with the children, we should be caring, we should be compassionate, and we should be understanding, we should be empathetic to the children and their needs, their feelings. And when we know the families, then we would know how to deal with many of the experiences of these children.
It's true. What do you think are the most important rights of children and their families?
Okay, I know that there are several rights of the child based on the UNICEF conventions, the United Nations Conventions for Human Rights and for children's rights. But I think the most important ones would be that of the right to privacy, the right to be free from violence and abuse, the right to be in a healthy environment, and also health services among some of the more important ones.
Okay. What are some of the assessment strategies professionals can use to assess children in the early childhood?
Okay, because this is a stage where development has begun. Well, from the womb, of course, but we are not fully developed at that stage, and therefore we would need to observe children quite a bit. We could also use things such as portfolios, simply having conversations with children, using a checklist, and that would give you an idea of how children develop and how they should develop. So I would say a milestone checklist would be key.
That's true. How can professionals in early childhood support strong partnerships with families?
Okay. You can only have a partnership if you get people involved. And so I think the first thing to do is getting to know the families. And to get to know them, you first have to reach out. Try to understand, tolerate, and accept the differences in the backgrounds of children and families that would be in your care. It's also important to create and let the families know that they are partners in how their children perform and how they develop in the activities that are done in early childhood centers or institutions.
Okay. Do you think teachers violate rights of children in early childhood education? What are some ways in which this is done?
I do believe that it happens. Whether or not they know it, teachers do violate the rights of children. And some of these ways might be in the area of, let's say, freedom of expression. We often think that children should be seen and not heard. I think it's something of tradition. And I do believe many early childhood teachers still feel that way. And so students or children are expected to, be quiet, not express their feelings or opinions. And so that's one of the ways. Also that of privacy, in that it could be as simple as a teacher taking a child's picture and displaying it on a social media without the consent of the parent. And also breaching confidentiality by sharing the information, private information, health information about students and their families.
Okay, so how should some of these issues be addressed?
Standard is important. Individual institutions, but I think within a country, there should be standards set by government of what is expected of anyone who provides early childhood education.
Okay.
And by doing that, it would also provide the standards by which the supervisors or owners of institutions can evaluate their workers. And often what gets evaluated would be what gets done.
Okay. Well, Ms. Wallace, thank you very much for your time and patience.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Good evening, Ms. Sweeney. Today we are here to speak with you on professionalism in early childhood education. Ms. Sweeney has preschool-aged children and has also been an educator for a number of years. so she too has a wealth of information about professionalism in early childhood education. Ms. Sweeney, tell me, what do you understand by the term professionalism?
Well, for me, professionalism has to do with the way one conducts themselves, their attitude, and their behavior at work.
Okay. Why do you think professionalism is important in early childhood education?
Well, in early childhood education, that's between K to 3, K to 2, well, 3 for ELP, but I would say that it's important because at that age, that's when they're impressionable. So the way they see their teachers conduct themselves and so forth, their attitude when they're at work would rub off on them, so to speak.
Okay. How do you think professionalism can be maintained in early childhood education?
Well, to maintain professionalism, I think it is important that communication is regular. So I would say that you would have to have workshops where teachers can have the opportunity to express what they're feeling. Sometimes you're confronted with parents. You have to maintain a level of professionalism at that point in time. You have children who might not be behaving the way you want them to behave, and you have to have a level of professionalism when dealing with them, your boss, all of that. So if workshops are held to address, some of the teachers' concerns and so forth, then I think this will help to maintain professionalism.
Okay. What is the most important indicator of professionalism in early childhood education?
I think respect would be foremost. If you have respect for the other person, then you in turn would expect to receive that respect. If you don't get it, as long as you continue to develop the respect, then I think that would work.
Okay. How do you believe professionals in early childhood education should conduct themselves with other teachers?
I think it's important that they work as a team. Working as a team, like I mentioned before, respect for each other, and not feeling like you know it all, but go for help when necessary.
Okay. How should professionals in early childhood conduct themselves around young children?
Well, as we all know, children, they imitate what they see. And at that age, like I said, they're impressionable. So you would have to conduct yourself in a way that you would want them to conduct themselves as they grow older. What you want to see from them, you in turn would have to conduct yourself in that manner.
Okay. What do you think are the most important rights of children and families?
In early childhood, I would say the right to express themselves. I know because of the society that we grew up in, you're often told you should be seen and not heard. And most of the times you think that if the class is quiet, that's the perfect class. But for me, I think the right to express themselves is often taken away. They're not allowed to say how they feel, say what they're thinking. It's most of the time the older person speaking.
Okay. What are some of the assessment strategies professionals can use to assess children in early childhood education?
I would say one of the major ones would be observation. When they're that tiny, they do a lot of things. You can observe them through play, even when they're eating. Different things you'll be able to pick up by just observation. You could use checklists as you observe. You might have things on your checklist that you could use to inform what you do with them when you have actual formal settings, formal class time. Benchmarks, yes.
How can professionals in early childhood support strong partnerships with families?
There again, communication, and not only when the parents come, like on the compound, but have socials where you could meet with the parents and talk with them in a different setting. I think that would create a closer partnership.
Get them to feel comfortable.
Comfortable, yes.
I agree. Do you think teachers violate rights of children in early childhood? If so, what are some of the ways in which this is done?
Yes, I think at times these children's rights are violated to such rights would be, like I mentioned before, the right to the freedom of expression, being able to express themselves, and then the right to have their information remain confidential. So for example, there are times when as a child is passing through, before they even get to the other teacher, you already know that this child can't behave or that kind of thing. Whereas I'm not saying that you're not supposed to mention certain things, but most of the times it's the negative, and then sometimes it's sensitive information. And I think in order to fix that, there again you would have to have workshops where you teach teachers how to deal with the information that they have, what information can and cannot be passed on to someone. And then I think we need to change our mindset as well in terms of the type of information we pass on to the teacher that's going to receive the child. It's not always a negative. It might be something positive. This child is a perfect drawer, can do this, has this skill, rather than this child cannot behave, this child is rude, that kind of thing. And then that would change the teacher's perspective for when they receive the child.
We don't make it a practice to highlight the positives, and so
Yes.
that is something that we can look at
going forward.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Sweeney, for your time and patience.
You're welcome. Thank you.